So there's a lot going on about this eclipse. If you go on the highways, all the highways have these signs.
Everything is sold out here, like you can't get an Airbnb or
Arrive early, stay late. People should stay in Buffalo for a while.
Yes, they should.
Come early,
They
stay
should
late.
never leave.
Right, exactly.
Okay, made assumption.
So the word, like Reuben mentioned, is likoy chama. Likoy literally means like striking, when the sun is struck. That's the word the Gemara uses. And most commentaries explain that that's referring to an eclipse. It doesn't say clearly that the sun is eclipsed. It says likoy chama. It's like someone hit the sun. That's what it says. So the first reference to this thing is really from the beginning, when the sun and the moon were created, which is Wednesday, Yom Revi'i, like today. So what does it say? In Bereshis, we're going to use the copies mainly today. So it says, Vayomer Elohim, Yehi ma'eres berkiah hashamayim, lahavdol ben hayom u'ben halayla, v'hayu la'osos u'lamayadin liyamim v'shanim. Hashem said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, for seasons, for days and years. Okay, so the pasuk, we're talking about the light, the sun and the moon. So we understand that they're for seasons. How do you know when the seasons are? The Yom Tov goes by the moon for days, and for years, the years go partly by the sun, partly by the moon. But what are the signs? The pasuk says they will be for a sign. V'hayu la'osos. So Rashi says on that, right in Bereshis, V'hayu la'osos, Rashi says, K'shama eres laikin siman rahu la'elam. When the heavenly luminaries are eclipsed, it is a sign of ill omen for the world. As it is written, be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. When you carry out the will of the Holy One, blessed be He, you need apprehend no calamity. Oh, Shalom Avishai. Welcome. Mazel tov. Yeah. Okay.
So excited for this lesson.
Yes.
I know, right?
Very so yeah, we just began. So the first time we have a reference to this the eclipse of the sun is actually in Bereshis, right in the beginning. It says that Hashem says that the sun and the moon will be la'osos, they will be used as a sign. So what sign is the sun and the moon giving off? So Rashi says that the sign is referring to an eclipse, because the eclipse is not a good sign for the world. So, but this is really amazing that Hashem is sending us signs. Hashem is sending us a message. From the creation, 5,784 years ago, Hashem says there's going to be signs, and He's sending us a sign now, 5,784 years later. This is a message from Hashem.
The next one is 125 years from now.
Wow.
Around
Here.
Again.
Yeah, but the next eclipse is
Argentina or something like it.
right
Yeah, that begs the question, how frequent are they?
about every 2 to 4 years.
Oh,
So the
different
eclipse
countries.
in Nashville, well,
The eclipse in Tennessee was 7, 8 years ago.
7 or 8 years ago, yeah.
But like there's an eclipse happening every 2 years or so, crossing
upon where you
on the
are.
Earth, depending on where you are. And some of the eclipses also happen around the poles, so there's like nobody that really sees them.
Mm-hmm. So they are happening, just depends where. You're saying the next time it'll be here will be 125.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I'll make it to that. Although you never know.
You
never know.
You never know.
Maybe your AI copy will make it
If I
there.
freeze my brain.
Yeah.
So that's from the Chumash, which is really amazing that there's a hint to this right in the beginning in Bereshis on Wednesday when Hashem created the sun and the moon. This is what Hashem said, there will be a sign. So let's look a little bit deeper into the Gemara, what it speaks about an eclipse. In the beginning it'll look a little bit scary or maybe not so good, but we'll take a positive perspective later on. So this page, it's in Hebrew. On the next page, it's translated, so wherever you want to follow. Tanu Rabbanan. The rabbis taught, Bizman sha'acham aloika, when The sun is Laika. We said Laika literally means when it's stricken, what it means when it's eclipsed. Siman ra l'kol ha'olam kulei. It's a bad sign for the entire world. Mashal lama davar daim. And what's the example, what's an analogy for this? L'melech basar v'dam. You have a king of flesh and blood. She'asa sa'uda la'avadav. He makes a party for his servants. V'hiniach panas lefneim. You don't want to eat in the dark, right? It's not tasty when you're eating food in the dark. So he puts a lantern in front of them. Ka'as alei, and then he gets angry at them. Va'amar la'avdei, and he tells his servant, Toil panas mepneim. He tells the servant, take away the lantern from you. V'haishivam b'chayshech, and let them sit in the dark. So we're in this party, we're in the world, Hashem is giving us sunlight and everything, and then Hashem says, what's very interesting, it doesn't say that the king takes away the lantern, it says he tells one of the servants to take away the lantern. We'll have to see what that means, but he says, take...
It's like a servant of God.
Or our... but he tells one of...
Get there until just now, you're more into your analysis and bringing it into the realm of us.
Right?
Yeah, it's interesting.
So there's three things. There's the king, there's the lantern, and then there's the servants. And he tells one of the servants, which is one of us, that we're taking away the lantern. It's interesting. We'll see what that means.
Right.
Another thing to point out, it doesn't say that he extinguishes the lantern, right? It just says he takes it away. And that's what an eclipse is. An eclipse is not that the sun goes out, it's just that we don't see it for a little while. Okay. Sit in the darkness. And by the way, this Gemara in Sukkah, very interesting. Right before this Gemara is when it rains. It speaks about when it rains in the Sukkah. And that's the famous example that, a king, a servant brought a drink of water to the king, and he pours the water on the servant. So like you come to eat in the sukkah and Hashem says like, I'm not so happy with you, and he makes it start raining. And right after this comes this Gemara. Still trying to see the connection, but basically the king is not so happy, it looks like, in both stories. So Tanya, Rabbi Meir says, Kol zman shama oires laikin, siman ra l'sein ein shel Yisrael. So he says, as long as the luminaries are stricken, this is a bad sign for the enemies of the Jewish people. Now, when it says here enemies, it's actually referring to the Jewish people, but we don't want to speak directly about us, so we put it on our enemies. But it's
what? Wait, what? Say that again?
The Gemara says that it's a bad sign for the enemies of the Jewish people, but it's really referring to the Jewish people.
Sometimes we are our own enemy.
That's also true.
Is that what?
Over here, we basically, when you don't want to say a curse for yourself, so you kind of place it on the enemy.
Enemies of yourself.
Yeah, it's used very commonly in the Gemara. Whenever we want to say something negative for the Jewish people, we use the words "Soineim shel Yisrael," the enemies of the Jewish people. And it's so before, if you look just a line before, it says that it's not good for the entire world, and over here it says that it's not good for the Jewish people. Why? Because they're accustomed to getting hit, to getting beaten. The Jewish people went through so much. So when something not good happens, we're like, uh-oh, maybe it's going to be us again. Mashal Sefer, and he gives an example of a teacher, Shabala Beis HaSefer, or Itzua Biyadei. We're not going to like this these days, but you have a teacher that comes in with a whip. He comes with a strap. And who gets worried? Hi, David. Oh, no problem. So what happens? The teacher comes in with his strap, with his belt or whatever. Mi daig, who's going to worry? Mi sharaga lukas b'kol yom v'yom hu daig. The one who gets hit every day, he's going to worry. The troublemaker, he's like, I'm probably going to get a little lash, a little whipping.
So when something bad happens, like an eclipse, it's a bad thing for the whole world, but it's also a bad thing for the Jewish people because we're so used to getting hit by something.
Right.
We're like a kid who's like, uh-oh, the belt's coming out.
Yeah, we have this trauma. We have what to worry about. That's what Rabbi Meir said. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught. We're the third paragraph over here. It's translated on the next page if you want to read over there. Bizman shahacham aloike, when there's an eclipse, a solar eclipse, siman ra l'goyim. That's not a good sign for the goyim. Levana, like if there is a lunar eclipse, siman ra l'sein aim shal Yisrael, then it's not a good sign for the Jewish people. And again, we use the expression, the enemies of the Jewish people. Why? Pnei sheYisrael meinin lelevana. The Jewish people, we count based on the moon. The goyim lachama, the goyim to the sun. So it's making this difference between the sun and the moon. When there's a solar eclipse, that's not a good sign for the goyim. When there's a lunar eclipse, it's not good for the yidden. Then it goes into more details. Like b'mizrach, if there is an eclipse in the east, siman ra liyoshvei mizrach, it's a bad sign for those who are in the east.
Sorry, solar or lunar they're talking now?
It's solar.
Okay.
B'mayrav, or maybe both, but I think it's solar. B'mayrav in the west, siman ra liyoshvei mayrav. Then it's not a good sign for those who are in the west. Be'emtza rakia, if it's straight in the middle, siman ra l'kol ha'olam kulei, then it's not good for the entire world. Panav daimin ledam, if it's reddish, if it looks like blood, cherev bala olam, that's a sign that there will be war, sword. Lesak, if it looks like sackcloth, which means that it's more dark, chitzei rav bala olam, then a famine is coming, which causes people to look more pale, unfortunately. Chas v'shalom. L'zoi o l'zoi, what if there's a little bit of reddish and a little bit of dark? Cherev v'chitzei ra b'la'olam, so then there's both of these problems.
That sounds like they're talking about lunar eclipses, because a solar
The
eclipse would
brown
not
and
be
the
red,
red.
but a lunar eclipse sometimes is red.
Yeah, soon.
Um,
Lunar eclipses can be red or brown.
See, in this image, English translation, if you look on the next page, it says when the sun is eclipsed in the east.
Right, but
seems
what
like
is it saying about the red and the darkened?
seemingly that it's talking about the same thing. It says if the sun is red like blood, then it says if the sun is black like sackcloth on the second page, not that page, one before that. Okay, laka b'knisasai, if there's an eclipse, when it enters, like when Paranas Shaya Lave, then it means that there's a punishment, but it's going to take a while. B'tziyasai, if it's when the sun is coming out, Memaheres Lave, then it's going to come quickly. V'yesh Omrim Chilaf Advarim. Some people say that it's reversed, that if it's when it's setting, then it's going to be slow. If it's when it's rising, then it's going to be fast. Ve'ein lecha kol umma v'umma shaloika she'eina leha loika ima. That together with the nation, also its God are also going to be stricken with it. Shenemar ovachol alihei Mitzrayim es shvatim. Those who serve the sun and the moon. So when there's a eclipse for the sun, it means that also the gods are also going to get smitten. There's also going to be a punishment for the goyim. Okay, so this was all the scary part, but now this is the good part, the good message. When we do the will of Hashem, we don't have to fear from all of these. If we're doing what Hashem wants, we don't need to be afraid of all these signs. Shenemar, Koi Amar Hashem, El derech hagayim al tilmadu, me'osas hashamayim al tichasu. Hashem says, the ways of the Goyim you should not learn, and from the signs of heaven do not be afraid. Ki yichatu hagoyim mehema. The Goyim have what to be afraid from these. Goyim yichatu ve'en Yisrael yichatu. The Goyim have to be afraid, but not the Yidden. So, if we're doing the right thing, we don't have to worry. Tanu Rabbanan, and the last piece on the page, Vishvil Arba Dvarim Chamalaika. There are 4 things that causes the solar eclipse. What are the 4 things? Al Av Bezdin Shemes Ve'ena Nispad Kahalacha. Someone who is the head of the Bezdin that died and was not eulogized properly. One reason. Val Nara Hamurasa. A girl that was betrothed and that was assaulted, Shetzaka Ba'ir, she cried out in the city, Ve'ein Moshi Allah, and no one came to rescue her. Val Mishkav Schur, for homosexuality, Val Shnei Achin Shenishbach Daman Ke'echad, and 2 brothers that their blood was spilled together, which means that they were both killed together. So these are the 4 things that cause a solar eclipse.
What does that mean, Shnei Machim Shenishbach Daman Echad?
2 brothers that were both killed at the same time.
Just generally speaking, 2 brothers? Is there a deeper meaning to that? It seems
So we need a lot of deeper meaning for all of these things. Why these four things specifically? Why do they have to do with the solar eclipse? What's the connection between these four things and a solar eclipse? And another question, this is a very fundamental question. We know that you're able to predict a solar eclipse, right? So how could the Gemara say that it's because of certain actions that we do that brings about a solar eclipse, right? It's something which you're able to predict. You could know when it's going to happen. So how could you say that it's only because of these things? Yeah, so this is two questions. First, what do these things have to do with the solar eclipse? And is it because of these things, or it's just a natural thing that happens every so often, like you said, every 2 to 4 years? So this was the Gemara. Let's look now into Rashi and some of the commentaries. If we go to the third page.
worldwide every 2 to 4 years, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got disrespect, rape, and homosexuality.
And two brothers.
It wasn't the two brothers getting it on?
That's the fourth.
Two brothers got killed.
Two brothers getting killed
Together.
Yeah.
That's a fourth one.
So where we see Rashi. So Rashi says, remember we gave the example of the teacher, that the one who's, the troublemaker who gets whipped, he's the one who's worried. So Rashi says, the third page in this booklet, anytime that there's punishment that comes to the world, Jewish people have what to worry about and to say, they could say that it's coming, because of us, because they are used to getting punished more than everyone else. And this is Jewish history, unfortunately. Now, Rashi is very honest, and where the Gemara says for four things, Rashi says, Loi shamati tam bedavar. Rashi says, I don't know why. He says, he reads this Gemara, he sees four things, and he says he doesn't know. But, yeah,
I've never heard Rashi say that.
It does happen. Rashi sometimes Rashi says, I don't know the explanation of this. Instead of saying nothing, he's a great teacher. He says, I actually don't know. He's teaching us that it's okay to say I don't know. However,
that's a huge deal,
it is.
to
Yeah.
say you don't know.
However, there are rabbis that came later that attempted to give reasons. I don't know if they thought that they were smarter than Rashi, but they tried to give an explanation. So we have the Maharsha. Maharsha is one of the famous commentaries on the Agadata, and he says like this: Al dal dvarim chama loika al av bezdin shemes pirush Rashi. He quotes Rashi. He says Rashi says I don't know. Lo shamati tamadavar v'nira b'miktzas, and he says I'm going to try to give a partial explanation. Yesh lases tam. So he explains the first one. He doesn't explain all of them. Ki av bezdin doima lachama. The head of the Beis Din is like the sun. Shemeir lakol b'Torah. He radiates and shines. He gives off light to everyone with his teaching of Torah. V'al kain, Moshe shehayu av Beis Din amru b'panav kepnei chama. It says about Moshe Rabbeinu, he was the head of the Beis Din, and that his face radiated like the sun. Now, if he was not eulogized properly, what does that mean? That they didn't appreciate his light. They didn't appreciate all that he was giving off, that he was teaching. So what happens then is that there's a solar eclipse where also the light is blocked, where there's a cover over the light.
The English translation on the second page actually put in an explanation on that one.
Interesting.
It said, and the eclipse is a type of eulogy by heaven.
Wow. I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
It's a type of
What did Rashi say he didn't know about?
He didn't know the reason why these four things are a cause for the eclipse.
Now, I've heard that Rashi would not get into things that couldn't be explained simply and direct from Torah sources. So maybe was he maybe meaning that he couldn't explain it using his methodology or using
Yeah,
his target audience?
I like that. That's very possible, which means on a very simple level, straightforward, Rashi's pshat, very simple, straightforward level, he doesn't have an explanation. If you go a little bit deeper on other levels, there.
It's not for me to say, in effect.
Yes, because that's his method of explaining, which is very pshat, sticking to the simple meaning. Now, I found someone who explained all four, which I thought was very fascinating. And he first says that we need to understand that we always compare Torah to light. We say ner mitzvah v'Torah or. Torah is compared to light. The neshama is compared to light. Someone who teaches Torah is also a light, like we just mentioned. So we have the first one we explained.
Israel's compared to light.
Jewish people are compared, yeah? Or you're saying the land of Israel?
Light among nations.
Light among the nations. So the first one, the Av Beis Din, he wasn't eulogized properly, so they didn't appreciate the light. What is the second one? The second one was there was this girl that she was betrothed. She wasn't married yet, and she was raped. So what is that referring to? So this is also, again, it's not really pshat, not so simple, but on a deeper level, it's referring to the Torah. The Torah is compared to a girl that's betrothed, a girl that's engaged to marry.
Is
What?
this Mipnei Yisrael Monim?
What? No, I'm just saying outside now, explaining the four things. There's a famous pasuk we say, Torah tziva lanu Moshe, Moirasha kilas Yaakov. The Torah Moshe taught, Moirasha is an inheritance. The Gemara says Moirasha could also be read as me'urasa, as betrothed, as engaged, which means the Torah is compared to someone who's about to get married. Not married yet, but about to get married. And this rabbi explained what's the connection, what's the comparison. So someone who's betrothed, she's not yet fully married, which means in the Torah, it's like the husband kind of acquires the wife. That's what it's called, hariyat mekudeshes li. But it's not fully his yet, right? They're not married yet, but they're about to be married. And the Torah is similar in that sense, which means Hashem gave us the Torah, but how do we acquire it? It's through us working hard on it, through us toiling it. So is it Hashem's Torah or is it our Torah? So the Gemara says, before you study it, it's Hashem's Torah. After you work hard and you really acquire the Torah, then it becomes yours. That's why the Torah is compared to this girl who's not yet married. She is going to get married, which means there's potential there to make it yours, basically. So also the Torah, Hashem gave it to us, but now it's our job to actually take it, to become one with the Torah, to really acquire the Torah. Now, what happened to this girl? She's about to get married, but something not good happened. She's crying, like it says, she's crying in the city, and no one is paying attention to her. What does that mean? It's like the Torah is waiting there. The Torah is saying, like, kind of marry me, someone take me, someone open me, someone study me, and no one's studying the Torah. That's like the light, which is again not being appreciated. It's a little bit, you have to.
Creepy, but where's the rape element of that story?
In the Gemara actually doesn't say clearly that there was rape.
It's the case in the Talmud of the girl who raped in the field versus the girl who's raped in the city.
That's true, but I'm saying if you go a little bit deeper on more of a medrash, the Gemara doesn't say clearly that there was a rape. It says that she cried out in the city, and no one came to rescue her. So over here it would mean that the Torah is crying out, and no one's coming to study it, basically.
Wow. Okay.
If you want to go more simple, someone says a very simple thing. This happened in the city in broad daylight, and no one did anything. Broad daylight, right? The sun is shining. Nobody sees like what's going on. It's not somewhere hidden. Why is no one coming to save? So that's a simpler explanation. Now, what was the third thing? Homosexuality. So what's that? So Hashem gave us the power of reproduction. And that's a certain light that we're able to continue and produce and have continuation of children. And what are they doing? They're just wasting it. They're not using it for a good purpose. They're not using that light. So that's again causes a solar eclipse. That's how he explains it, this rabbi. The fourth thing was the two brothers. He says, what are the two brothers? He says the two brothers are the neshama and the body, the soul and the body. And sometimes, instead of using our soul to elevate our body, sometimes the body causes the soul to go down. That's what it means that the two brothers are killed at the same time, which means that the neshama, the light of the soul, is being eclipsed, it's being darkened by the body. That's why, because there's this light which is lacking in the neshama and the body, that's what causes a solar eclipse. So the common theme of these four things is that there's a certain light, either it's the light of this rabbi, or it's the Torah, or the third thing, the power of reproduction, or the neshama in the body. Because this light was not used properly, not appreciated, that's what causes also in the world that there should be the solar eclipse. Which is really an amazing idea, that what we do is reflected and causes, in a big change in the world. We are the light, and when our light is shining, when we're using out our light, then also Hashem's light is shining in the world. When there's an eclipse in our own life, that causes an eclipse in the world, in the general. So, one of the lessons we could learn from this is to add in light, keep on shining. If there's place for darkness, we have to bring out more light. So that was about these four things. Rashi says, I don't know, and then you have these other rabbis that gave these different examples.
Wait, did you explain the two?
The two brothers are the neshama and the
The
Gog.
neshama, yeah, okay, got it.
Okay. So let's continue back now in the Maharsha. Neshe Yisrael Mainin Lalavana. What paragraph is this? It's for a second paragraph in the Maharsha. We said that the Jewish people are compared to the moon, v'umas olam lachama. Ubemedrashos nasnu harbe dimyonim. In the Medrash, there's a lot of comparisons. The hachodesh hazel lachem. I found this very amazing. I think this week hachodesh. Do we read in the Torah an extra part which speaks about hachodesh, about the new moon, because we're getting close to Pesach.
Yeah.
I think it is.
And the pasuk says, "Hachodesh hazel lachem." This new moon should be for you. Why does it say for you? Because there's a special connection between the Jewish people and the moon. So it really all ties in. This is right before the solar eclipse. Hashem is telling us, don't worry so much about the sun. You guys are more connected to the moon. That's.
If it stops, we're cooked.
I think it's kind of the opposite, but okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring out that idea. Maybe when it gets to Shabbos, we'll focus more on Hachodesh Hazel Lachem, but we see the Jewish people are more connected to the moon.
Freeze, yeah.
Then he brought the example of the teacher, and the Maharsha says something very interesting. We said that who worries the student who usually gets whipped? So the next paragraph, Mashal Sefer Chulu Mishra Galokos B'chol Yom Daik Chulu. It's the student who has the ability to learn and he's not studying. He says, who gets whipped? You get whipped, it's not just saying, okay, because you always get punished, you'll get punished more. It's because of your potential. The teacher says, you're able to study, you guys are able to do so much more, so why aren't you studying? So the Maharsha is shedding some positive light on this. He's saying the Jewish people, why are we always the one to get punished? Because it's coming. Hashem says, you guys could do so much. So why don't you do more? That's the way he explains. It's not just okay, you always get punished, so probably you'll get punished again. He says, no. He says, we're able to do more, so then why? So then that's the reason to worry. Okay, so this was all from the Gemara, which, from one hand, it's saying that it's not such a good sign. From the other hand, it says that if the Jewish people do the will of Hashem, we don't have to fear from these omens, from these signs. We still had another question, which was a very big question. How could you say that it's because of these four things if it's something kind of natural, that we know that it's going to happen every so often? So this was actually a big source for people to say that what the rabbis say is not accurate. A lot of people came to debate the rabbis and said, look, the rabbis didn't really know about astronomy and how the solar eclipse works, and that's why they said that that it comes because of certain things, like how.
I did know.
But they did know. But they were using this like against the rabbis. They were using this
I'm saying
Gemara
the rabbis knew.
specifically. Right. So the question is, if they did know, so then how could they say that it's because of these four things? Right. So that was it was used in debate a lot amongst the rabbis. So there's a lot of different answers on this. Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz, he had many debates with different people, a lot of maybe priests or other people that were very knowledgeable. And he says that we're assuming that the Gemara is talking about an eclipse. He says doesn't say that in the Gemara. It says Likoy Chama. It says that the sun is stricken. He says that it's referring to sun spotting. Anyone heard of that?
Yeah.
No, tell me.
You have to see them with a telescope and a solar filter, but the sun gets spots on its face.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
You
Dark-
can see it with a pinhole camera. You
dark
can see
spots.
It with a telescope.
Okay.
So that's what he says. He says those things you can. According to him, you can't really
So
predict.
those are like flaws on the face of the sun.
Exactly. So he says that's what the Gemara is referring to. You don't ask a question on the rabbis. You interpreted that it's referring to an eclipse. He says, who said? Maybe it's referring to the sun spotting. That's the way he.
Which are truly random. So there
Yeah.
you go.
You see, that was good.
Shouldn't say truly random.
Right. It's for a reason.
They appear.
They appear. And another rabbi said a different approach. He says like this, that not always do you see the eclipse. He says, what if there's clouds blocking it? So when the Gemara says that it's not a good sign is if you see it. He says, if you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, then there might be an eclipse. We're not changing that, but it might not be seen. Maybe it'll be a cloudy day.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're seeing it, that's not a good
Even
sign.
then, it's only a few minutes.
Now that's interesting because you're not supposed to seek out or just to look at a rainbow because a rainbow is a sign of evil. So does that mean by inference you should not seek to look at the eclipse?
According to this, we'll see soon. There's a whole opposite approach that you should specifically look at it. But according to this explanation, it's saying that seeing it is not a good thing.
It goes to the question of what's the bracha you say, and some say there's no bracha because it's an ill sign.
Exactly.
But you do make a bracha over the rainbow
Yeah, the rainbow.
because it represents a promise.
Right.
But, yeah.
This is different.
It does certainly remind you of the significance of light.
Yeah. So that was another approach, whether you see it or not. A third approach is that everything is predicted, which is a little bit hard to understand with Hashem's knowledge and our choice, but Hashem knows that at certain times there are going to be certain sins, and Hashem plans the solar eclipse together with those sins. That's another approach. He says that there is a certain time when it's going to happen, but Hashem knows that at that time there is going to be also these sins. It's very hard to explain this with free will. It seems like it contradicts with free will. It's a hard approach, but this is one other approach that some rabbis explain.
As far as we can see.
What?
Say as far as we can see.
What do you mean?
These are other explanations.
These are other
There's
explanations.
a connection between Hashem and human error or
Yeah.
evil.
Mm-hmm.
And it's balanced his universe.
Yeah. That's something very interesting. And
Is there a significance to where you would see the eclipse at its maximum, so to speak?
I didn't see that. It's interesting. If it's another.
Totality, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
yes.
total.
Yeah, we'll be in totality.
Yeah.
No, but that's
That's
a
my
good question.
point
Partial-
If there's a
are partial
difference.
eclipses, do they have a different significance to the?
Oh,
To the full, to the maximum.
Full.
That's a nice idea. Wow.
do they?
And also, an eclipse doesn't cover the whole world, so
So that was one of the
It's just
answers.
moving
It
shadows.
depends
It's
where
predictable.
it's seen. Also, in the Gemara it says if it's in the west, if it's in the east, right?
Right.
So you see, so it depends.
Yeah, they'll see partial eclipses.
See where it's seen.
Like during the course of the day, we're gonna see it at 2 o'clock. In Texas, they're gonna see it at 7 or 8 or 10 in the morning, whatever it is.
We're seeing it around 3:45.
Well, it'll be on TV, not
Two.
believe us.
2 something in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah. Yeah, between 2:45 and 3.
I have a whole
Yeah.
timetable.
Yes,
Yeah.
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 It'll be over.
So, another approach. This is this is from the Rebbe, and he says like this: that when the Gemara says that there's these 4 things, it doesn't have to mean that those things happen at that time. It just means that it's a time of punishment, which means, let's say there were these averos. Hashem decides when is the time that He punishes. So it's not saying that those things happen specifically then. It's just saying that Hashem decides that will be a time for punishment. That's another approach.
Oh,
Is there somebody at the door? I keep hearing the thumping sound.
There was a hat falling on the floor.
You could look at it the other way, kind of think inspired by that what you just said, which is depending on what you see, when you see it, and everything, you should be reflecting on these particular sins.
Yeah, so you should to be thinking about those things. Yeah,
Or
or
ignoring the cries of the helpless, not properly treating the the famous, denigrating the body in the 2 various ways described. These are all these are things to be brought to mind.
to think about.
Yeah.
Or he goes further and he says that these times are actually a time which causes a person an inclination towards these 4 things, which is kind of the opposite. Which basically, there's different mazals. We say that a person that was born on a certain day might have a certain inclination towards a certain thing. Like this person, there's mazel maidim, it's called like the red mazel, and it says if a person is born in that mazel, in that constellation, so then he'll have a nature to possibly be a murderer. Or it says that you could change that over into being a shochet, or to be using it in a positive way. But we do believe that certain times cause a person not to be compelled. It's not a full force, but an inclination towards certain things.
Does it say anything about being born during an eclipse?
So, according to the way the Rebbe is explaining it, during the eclipse, a person has more of a tendency or an inclination towards these 4 things. That's what the Gemara means. It doesn't mean that because of these things there is an eclipse, but during the eclipse, a person is more inclined towards these 4 things.
Yeah, I can understand.
You can.
It's there already anyhow.
You're saying, but that there's more of an inclination towards it then. Now, the Gemara says that the Goyim have to be afraid and not the Jews. Why is that? Because the Goyim are under the rules of nature. That's why we always say the Jewish people are not under the mazel, which means even though there is a certain inclination, but the Jewish people are higher than the mazel, so we don't have to be afraid, even if there is an inclination at the time of the eclipse towards these averos, we don't have to be afraid because we're above the nature when we do Hashem's will. So that's the positive thing.
Only if we do Hashem's will.
yeah, that's the big thing there.
That's the
Significant, yeah.
Caveat.
Yeah.
So now let's move along a little bit more of a positive perspective on the eclipse. So this is from the Orchos Tzaddik.
Yeah, after it starts moving away, everyone starts
Yeah.
screaming. Happy.
Yeah. So this is from the Orchos Tzaddikim, and he says, maybe I'll say it outside, we don't have so much time left. He says that we take for granted every day the sun comes up and the sun goes down, and we kind of say, okay, it's just going to happen again. And we just think, okay, it's a natural thing. But when the sun gets blocked, when we have this eclipse, then we start thinking, oh, we're getting sunlight. Hashem is causing this to happen. So he says what we should learn from the eclipse is that every day we should not think, okay, this is just something that's continuous, but we should appreciate it as something which is new. If you look in the words which are underlined, V'yehei nira ke'ilu hayisa summa ad ata. You should imagine as if you were blind.
Nothing's underlined.
Bold, sorry.
Okay.
You should imagine as if you were blind. V'achshav pasachta einecha. And now you only open your eyes. So that's what happens after the eclipse. Like you said, you appreciate sunlight.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what I'm saying about
No, you appreciate the power of the first little sliver, just lights up the whole place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tiny little sliver.
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah, it's
like the
incredible.
whitest light
Yeah.
I've ever seen with my own eyes. Just like
It's crazy, yeah.
So what's really amazing is that, the sun is shining for us and it doesn't stop. The moon keeps on changing. But when the sun kind of stops, that's something new. And now we start appreciating the light of the sun and the power of Hashem, this infinite power that Hashem put into the sun to keep on going. One of the things that caused Avraham to believe in Hashem, he says he looked up at the sun. He saw that it's going and moving, and look how big the sun is. And who could move such a big thing? And every day, and it doesn't stop, and it doesn't get tired. And when it stops for a few seconds, we go crazy. This we have to appreciate the infinite power of Hashem. This is one of the.
Also, the fact that these two objects, the sun and the moon, are a perfect fit. You couldn't have an eclipse if it the moon is exactly the right same size, which cannot be eclipsed.
Wow, very
Occasionally
interesting.
you get something called an annular eclipse, which when the moon is really far away from the earth, you do get the
You get a
moon
ring. You get
slightly too small to cover the entire face,
Right,
and you see a
right.
ring of.
Yeah,
And
that's
then unless you see a ring, you know what I'm saying? I'm
There's the
gonna
corona.
guess you see a perfect circle.
You see a ring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
that's
And then
very.
there's the corona, which is a whole nother.
Yeah, so it's a,
But corona is a regular eclipse. An annular eclipse is very rare.
Yeah, that's very interesting that you said that. Like it fits exactly.
There's
Yeah,
no-
it's.
And also one of them is active, one of them is passive.
Mhm.
The moon is just
but the
it's
truth
just a
is
rock.
they're not nearly the same size.
Size.
It's
One is
that
1250 at
one
the
is-
size, and one is 1250 at the distance.
Right. Exactly.
So it's just
The distance and the size.
So that makes it even more interesting
all
how.
the physics
Yeah,
involved
yeah,
here.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, we looked up.
So
very exact, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that number. It's, sometimes it.
Also, I was wrong. It's not every
Sounds
2
good
to
to
5
me.
years. There's a total solar eclipse every 18 months on Earth, and there is 2 to 5 partial eclipses every single year.
Yeah, because it's just, what we're calling an eclipse is the moon is
The
always
total.
casting a shadow.
Mm.
The sun is shining and the moon is spinning around. So there's always a shadow, with the rare exception when the moon is on the, behind the earth, which is very, But it's what we call an eclipse is when the shadow falls on us.
Yeah, but it's
Because the eclipse is, from our perspective, it's a perfect
Right.
match.
It's a geometric
Right.
10 miles away, 20 miles away, it's an almost.
But what I'm saying is that
Yeah.
there are 2 to 5 partial eclipses
Every
every single
shadow
year.
hits some part of the earth.
part of the sun,
yeah.
but it doesn't
Yeah.
fully cover it. A
I saw one
total,
last October flying out of
Right.
Israel,
Right.
35,000 feet.
right? A
Couldn't believe
total solar eclipse though only
That's-
happens once every 18 months.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. So, focusing on this idea of HaChodesh, we always say that the moon gets renewed. That's why every time we make
Right.
Kiddush HaChodesh.
Oh, yeah.
But the sun, it has this idea that it's steady. It doesn't really change. And I think this is reminding us, we have to, even the sun needs to get a renewal, kind of, like we have to appreciate it again, even though it's so constant. Now, there's something called Perek Shira. Some people say it maybe every day. Everything in this universe says a song to Hashem. And this Perek goes through everything, the sun, the moon, animals, and it says what is their song. So in this Perek Shira, it's very interesting. What is the choice that they use for the song of the sun? Shemesh Omer. What does the sun say? This is on the bottom of this page. Shemesh Yireach Amad Zvula La'erchitzacha Yehalechu Lenega Barak Chanisecha. Of what does the sun sing of the time of the eclipse? Isn't that interesting? Out of all times, the sun is saying, the sun, when covered by the moon, stood in its abode. They walked to the light of your arrows and by the shine of your glittering spear. In all the pictures, you see the sun, coming from around.
Yeah.
You see, but it's much stronger. It's like that's why it calls it like arrows and a glittering spear. So one of the commentaries ask, why would the sun sing about its eclipse? Let it sing about its great light, its warmth, how it makes possible all of life on our planet. Rabbi Moshe ben Yosef di Tirani, he's named the Mabit, a halachist and Kabbalist of Tzfas, in the 16th century explained, the sun sings its praise to Hashem for the bad, just as it does for the good. Even as it is struck by the moon standing before it, blocking its light, the sun remains in its place with all its light. It is only that the moon interposes between us and that light. I think someone just mentioned that, right? For the sun, the sun doesn't get affected. Even when the moon is blocking it, it's still shining. The moon, on the other hand, is not that way. When the earth stands between it and the sun, it has no light, for all its light is from the sun. So that's the Perek Shira. This is what the sun is singing. It's praising to Hashem that even when the moon gets in my way, I'm still singing to you. It doesn't stop me. We mentioned before about saying a bracha on the eclipse. So I guess there's different opinions about this, but the Rebbe answered someone about this question that because from the Gemara it sounds like it's not a good sign. So you should be more davening than a blessing, which means a bracha is more like gratitude. At such a time, you actually should be praying more that nothing bad should happen than making a bracha. So that's that opinion. Now, on the last page, I don't know if we have time to read the whole thing, but there's a very interesting account of the Chafetz Chaim. When there was an eclipse that happened at his time. I'll just read the first few lines. And the Chafetz Chaim taps again on the last page with his right hand on the table with an expression of victory, and smiling he adds, they should come to see. It is a mitzvah to see the sun eclipsed, to actually see that a creation was actually formed by the Creator. And he taps lightly again with his right hand and a quiet smile. Had already prepared for the Chafetz Chaim a specially triply thick, darkened pair of glasses which properly fit the good and trustworthy eyes of the holy and vaunted elder. The righteous one does this, looking at the eclipse with holy trepidation, exactly as he would silently gaze at his Chanukiah. From it he does not remove his eyes so long as they are sparkling remnants of oil. I don't know, it's a very funny comparison between the menorah and the eclipse, but we mentioned before, should you be looking at it or not? You see from the story, the Chafetz Chaim was saying that it's a great thing to look at it. He's saying it's a mitzvah. I'm saying, I don't know if he actually said these exact words, but then there was something interesting. This is an expression in Yiddish, but during that same story when this happened and the Chafetz Chaim was looking at the eclipse, there was someone else, another Rosh Yeshiva, and he says, Medarf nish kukin, medarf zen. Which means he says, don't look, you have to see. He says, when you're looking at it, what are you looking? What are you seeing? There's a difference. Looking is just like, a superficial, external. Right, yeah. He's like, what are you seeing? What is there actually to see? You have to look deeper. And the Chafetz Chaim was saying that this is actually a proof of how Hashem is the creator. Some people worship the sun, and over here the sun stops, kind of, something is blocking the sun. You're like, okay, it's not as powerful. And there's something very interesting. We say this every Shabbos in davening, and I never knew this explanation. We say in Kel Adon, whatever tune you use, Kel Adon, whatever. So we say Kara LaShemesh Vayizrach Or. He called out to the sun and irradiated light. Ra'a v'hiskin suras halavana. And then Hashem formed the shape of the moon. So one of the commentaries said, what's the connection? Like he says, he called out to the sun and then he shaped the moon. He says that when Hashem made the sun, people started worshiping the sun. So Hashem made the moon to eclipse the sun, that we shouldn't believe in the sun. He says, Kara LaShemesh Vayizrach Or. So in order that people shouldn't believe so strongly in the sun, Ra v'hiskin Suras Halavana. That's why he created the moon, to kind of make it not as powerful. So looking at the eclipse in a way is bringing out the unity of Hashem. How not to believe in these idols, and there's a higher power that's beyond this. That's another perspective on this. Just to finish off, there's a certain Gemara, we actually studied this together. It says someone who gets embarrassed and doesn't embarrass the person who embarrassed them. The Gemara says, what is his reward? He will merit for the sun to come out in its full strength. Remember we studied that? So what does that mean? Someone who takes embarrassment and he doesn't offend the other person back, he will merit for the sun to come out in its full strength. What does that mean? What's the connection between the two things? So one of the commentaries explained, this is referring to what happens after the eclipse. The moon is actually embarrassing the sun. He's blocking its light. But the sun doesn't take offense. He continues shining afterwards. So someone who acts like that to other people, that even when they get offended, when someone blocks their light, they just keep on shining afterwards, he will merit to see the sun in its full strength because he's taking a lesson from the sun.
And if you've ever seen an eclipse, that moment where the eclipse is over and the sun actually starts to come out, I mean, personally, for myself, that was the brightest light I've ever seen in my life.
It's a real mind blowing.
So-
It really is.
Yeah.
So this is a powerful lesson that after a person
Appreciate it just that
Yeah.
much more.
Yeah.
It could be metaphorically to mean that his honor will be
restored,
fully.
yeah. So just to summarize from this whole thing, so there's a lot of different perspectives here. From the Gemara, it seems like it's not such a good sign in general. However, if we do the will of Hashem, then we don't have what to be afraid of, all these negative signs. But it's basically a reminder for us, I think, from all this thing, is to increase in light, because the four things were all a lack of appreciation of light. And, this is teaching us how we have to keep on adding in light. It's also a reminder of the power of Hashem, the greatness of Hashem, and, taking away Avodah Zarah, not to believe so so strong in the sun. And then this final lesson is that even, when something someone causes an embarrassment to us, we keep on shining and shine even stronger. So these are some messages.
What does this mean? Azoi is out there, they're fitting in Kesher Malchus.
Oh, there's a Python, there's a poet, there's a, I guess it's called Keser Malchus. I have to find where it is. But in this poetry it says, Az Yamid Hayareach Lefnei Hashemesh, then the sun will stand in front of the sun, Ka'av Shechera, like a dark cloud.
The moon will rise in front of the sun.
Yes. What did I say? Sorry. The moon rises in front of the sun like a dark cloud. V'yaster mi'ein kol re'eha ma'ira, and it'll block from all its light. Ba'es hazayis yevaishu mimachshavei. At that time, all the goyim who believed in the sun will be embarrassed of their thoughts. Hachayshvim ki Hashem esh Elokeim, that think that the sun is their God. So that's that idea here.
Which shows sometimes how people have lost